I'm excited to share with you guys a little bit again today. We're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 5. 2 Kings chapter 5, that's in the Old Testament. If you're new here and you don't have a Bible, that's okay. They're going to put it on the screens for you, so don't feel bad. But we're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 5, and I'll give you a little breakdown about what we're going to talk about today. And it reads like this. It says, "But when Elisha, the man of God," remember in the old days they used to call the man of God the man of God? You remember that? Anybody church people? Bring it back, Jesus. "The man of God heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes in dismay. He sent this message to him. 'Why are you so upset? Send Naaman to me, and he will learn that there is a true prophet in Israel.'" That's a bold statement. So Naaman went with his horses and his chariots and waited at the door of Elisha's house. But Elisha sent out a messenger to him with this message: "Go and wash yourself." How many times? How many times? 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored and you will be healed of your leprosy. But Naaman became angry and stalked away. Stalked away is a old word for brute. You know how your kid gets an attitude with you and stomps their feet and walks away? That's what Naaman did. "I thought," this is what Naaman said, "he would certainly come out to meet me. I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. Aren't the rivers of Damascus to Abana and Parphar the better than any of the rivers of Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed?" So Naaman turned away and went away in a rage. But his officers tried to reason with him and said, "Sir, the prophet has told you to do something very difficult. Wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply, 'Go and wash yourself and be cured.'" So Naaman went down to the Jordan River, dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him, and his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed. That's a good verse. That's good Bible right there. I feel like I could preach all day on this, and I kind of am. I got a question to start today off. Have you ever been in a situation where either you or someone you know is avoiding something? Let me see your hands. We're in church. Let's confess it and get it off our chests. All of us. Okay. If your hand is down, you're starting off the Sunday rough. All right. Just starting off just come on, bring it all to Jesus now. Have you ever, I don't know, maybe it's chores. Maybe it's like going to a doctor appointment. Maybe it's paying taxes on your car. Hello, anybody? Anybody not pay their taxes ever? And then every time you park in public, you're like, "God, I pray it's still there." You're just like praying praise that God's not going to answer. You're like, "God, blind the tow man, blind the tow man. Don't let him see my vehicle." You're just like coming up with stuff, just avoiding something. I never forget, I had a cavity a while back, and I'm not proud to admit this, but I had a bad cavity, and I knew I had the cavity because I went for my cleaning, and she was like, "Hey, you should just make an appointment, get rid of it." She made the appointment with me, and I didn't go because I just didn't feel like going. And so I just kept going, ignoring it. A year and a half went by, and sooner or later I went to go bite a sandwich, and when I bit the sandwich, my tooth broke, and I was like, "Ah!" Like it was bad. It was just like, it was rough. And so I made an emergency visit, and they started to work on it. They were like, "Oh, this is bad." And it's not good when a doctor says, "This is bad." I'm just like, And so as they start working on my tooth, guess what happens? The Novocaine isn't working. The numbing agents aren't working because the infection was so bad. I know you guys are like, "Wow, that's a pastor? What's going on here?" Like it was working so bad that the infection was so bad that my numbing wasn't working. He said, "David, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but the only thing we can do now is to drill into your tooth with no numbing, and then to take the numbing needle and stab into the soft tissue and inject it there so that we can get this done." Everybody's a man until it's time to be a man, in the words of Lizzo, all right? And I was like, "Do it." And so he started to drill, and I'm going to tell you something. I was so prophetic and powerful, Pastor Randall. I mean, there was a grace on my life. I was just like, yeah, it doesn't feel, I was screaming like a girl. I'm not the girl scream loud, but whatever. I was just like, "Ah!" Like I felt everything. And then he stabs me one time, and I'm like, "Ah!" And he stabs me again. And at this point, people are like, "I don't want what he's doing." like, get me out of here. I need to go to a different dentist. Like, what is happening? Like, I'm getting murdered over there. And I just never forget. And so the dentist looked at me as like, because dentists are weird. If you're a dentist, we love you. But they talk to you when you got stuff in your mouth. And they go, "So how you doing today?" And they're just like, yep. And it's just like, they can interpret tongues apparently. And so I was sitting there, and so as he's working, he said something I never forget, and I know it was the voice of God because sometimes we think God only speaks to us through prophetic things, but sometimes God speaks through people. Hello, somebody. And I think some of us are waiting for a word from heaven, and the word from heaven was your friend that gave you advice 3 times already, and you still didn't do it, and so you're frustrated that you're stuck because God has given you words, but you're not listening to the words. And so I never forget it. He was like, if you would have just taken care of this the next week like we did, it would have been 30 minutes and a $25 copay. But here you are for 2.5 hour visits, paying over $1,700 to $1,800 out of pocket because you just didn't want to do it. And I never forgot that. And I think if I have a message for today, my message today, the title is going to be called, Just Do It. Just do it. Just do it. And I know we're not clapping because we're ready like I should have stayed home. There's a tornado watch. I should have just stayed home and not been here. But I honestly believe that God is a God of miracles. I believe that God is a God who intervenes in the natural life with supernatural power. I believe that God is doing more for us than our mind could even comprehend. And I believe that God's a God that answers prayers. Hello, somebody. I believe that God is already answering our prayers, but here's the thing that I think we struggle with. We struggle with what's on the other side of the miracle. And I think what happens is we all need a miracle. We all want God to show up. We all need to hear from God. We all want a blessing from God. We all need God to show up with power in our life. But what happens often is that our miracles are attached to obedience. Hello? Let's get some good Bible teaching in here. Yeah, we're going to get some good theology today. Like there's a lot of if and then in the Bible. Like God doesn't often show up and be like, I'm just going to do it for you to do it for you. He's like, if you do this, then I will do this. This is all Deuteronomy 11, right? He says, if you obey me, if you do this, then I will pour out the windows of heaven. I'll bless you. I did it. But it's conditional upon our response. And can I tell you something? I think really, sometimes in the church, we're just waiting for God to do something, and God's really waiting for us to do something. Hello? Hello? Yeah? I think sometimes we're like, God, I expected you to move by now. And God was like, yeah, me too. I expected you to move too. And I think what happens is we get so caught up in these powerful supernatural moments that we want to see that we miss what God gave us instructions to do here. And so what happens is what we didn't obey in one season, we attribute to warfare in the second season because we never obeyed God in this season. Can I tell you, some of the stuff you're going through is not spiritual warfare. It's just called disobedience. Rough message on a Sunday. I know. I'm not going. It's like, yeah, I really should have stayed home. This is not the message. But I want to tell you today that there's some things that we just need to do. You know what I'm saying? Like if your lawn is up to here, you just need to mow your lawn, baby. That's not warfare. You know what I'm saying? Like stop overspending. That's not warfare. It's not a spirit of poverty. It's just a lack of obedience and stewardship, right? And so there's this reality, I think, of like, God just like, there's some things that you just got to do. Like, just do it. My nephew, I love him, but I also don't like him. It's crazy how you can love kids and not like kids, right? And so the other day I said, hey, I need you to clean your room because it stinketh. It smells like Lazarus has died in your room, like you got something that's rotting. And he was like, okay, fine. And so he gets up, and I'm like, okay, he's going to clean. Instant obedience. We love that as parents, right? And like he's going to clean. He walks to the kitchen and grabs a bottle of water, opens it, and starts to sip and scroll. Sip, scroll, skip. And now, I know my nephew. He chugs. He doesn't sip, right? Because the way all my juice goes, it's like he chugs. But when he had something to do, he started to sip. Made me very angry. And I was like, you gonna clean your room now? When he finished, yeah, I got you right now. I gotta use the bathroom first. Grabs his phone, goes into the bathroom. 3 hours. 3 hours. I'm exaggerating. Maybe it was like an hour and a half, whatever. It was still crazy just sit. And I was like, what are you gonna clean? I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna do it. Okay. He finally comes out and I go, you ready to clean your room now? And he goes, I really don't feel good. I just feel sick, man. I just don't feel like I should do this right now. Can I do it tomorrow? And you know what? I looked at him and I was like, man, that is how I look spiritually sometimes. Like God has been asking me to do certain things that are not even prophetic. It's just found in scripture. And I have all the rationale and all the reasons and all the excuses and all the ideas as to why it is just not for me to do in this season. And can I tell you, if we continue to live like that, we will never see the fullness of what God has for us right now in earth. You'll see it in glory, but you won't see it in fullness because there's some things that we just got to roll up our sleeves and do. Yeah? Huh? Is this helping anybody so far? Like there's things like loving people and serving and giving and honoring and supporting and showing up for. There's some things there's no way around. There's no miracle besides God giving us the ability to just do them. So my big idea for today is this: trust and obedience are better than grind and hustle any day. Trust and obedience is better than grind and hustle any day, because if we're honest, a lot of the things that we're grinding for are not God ideas, they're our pride ideas. They're things that we desire out of life, but not the things that God has destined for us. And so here we're going to pick up our text, because I believe this text is so interesting because there are barriers sometimes we feel like between us and God. And if we're honest, a lot of times those barriers are self-imposed. They're barriers that we build because we don't know, or we don't want to know, the things that God has said to us. Things that God has said to us. And so it's funny that we pick up this text, 2 Kings chapter 5. There is a Syrian general. His name is Naaman. Naaman is well known in all the nations. He has battled with Israel before. He has won against Israel. Naaman is that dude. Everybody likes Naaman. Everybody wants to be Naaman. Naaman has it all. But the one thing that he has with everything is that he has leprosy. What is leprosy? We don't hear about leprosy often nowadays. Leprosy is a skin disorder. It's a disease that literally eats a person alive from the inside out. It is your flesh rotting from the inside out. Your gums, your joints, your fingers, and sooner or later it rots you to the point where you die. So Naaman has all this stuff, but has this struggle. And isn't it funny how humanity always tries to hide their leprosy with everything they're doing in life? I have money, I have influence, people like me, people want to be around me, people know my name, but I still have this thing in me that I just can't seem to get rid of. And no matter how much I have, no matter how much I'm impressing people, this leprosy is in me. We have spiritual leprosy, every single person in this room, and it's called sin. It's called sin. The Bible still says in Romans that all have fallen short of the glory of God. There is none perfect, no, not one before a perfect God. And I love this because Naaman had captured an Israeli servant and made her his servant. And when he's talking to her about his leprosy, she goes, I know what to do. There's a prophet in Israel, and he can heal you of your leprosy. And isn't it funny how we can always say, God doesn't speak to me, but he keeps sending people in our life to give us the truth. We just refuse to hear it. Because it's not coming from the people that we want it to come from. Hello? I am a youth pastor, and for years I have been preaching stuff to our students, and they go, A guest pastor will come and preach one day and say everything I said, and they go, oh my God. What revelation. That guy is preaching. And I'm there like, get out my face, get out my face. I've said this to you 17 times, get out my face. It's crazy. And so Naaman talks to the king of Syria, and they send him to Israel, and he comes with over $3 million worth of a gift to say to the king, hey, heal me of leprosy. And at this time, it looked like Syria and Israel were at a standstill. There wasn't any war. And the king was like, he freaked out because he thought that was Israel, the king of Syria, making like a joke saying he wants to fight him again. And so he got so upset, he rips his clothes and he's upset. And can I just, in like a parentheses real quick, like the way you react to drama speaks volumes about where your faith level is. Because he is the king of Israel. He is God's chosen nation. God has protected, guided, led, and blessed Israel all this time. And still, when drama presents itself, he loses his mind and acts like he doesn't know what to do. So much so that the prophet calls him and is like, bro, what you tripping for? Why are you tripping? Send him to me so he'll know there's a real prophet in Israel. And isn't it funny how we will allow the situations of life to dictate to us how big our God is? and to tell us that God is not really able to intervene. Baby, if you don't got enough faith for it, give me somebody that does have enough faith for it to believe with me, to know that God is about to show up and change everything. And there's this reality of like, you need some faith people in your life. You need people in your life that are not going to be like, that stinks, man. I'm sorry you're going through that. But people that go, what happened? Give me your hands right now. We're going to pray right now. And we're going to believe for change, breakthrough, miracle, signs, wonders. And we're going to keep praying until something happens, because we know that there is a God in Vertical Church this morning. Absolutely. Come on, somebody. We know. And so the prophet gets upset. And he's like, bro, what are you doing? Send him to me. And so here's where we pick up our text, right? Because Naaman goes to see the prophet. And like we read, Naaman did not like his experience. Here's what I want to get to. We have so much rationale as to why we won't, that we never actually do. We have so many reasons as to why it just isn't for us. We have so many things as barriers, excuses as to why I just don't. I don't serve. I can't. I'm so busy. I got my own private practice, you know. I just like, you know what I mean? You know, just devotions. If you knew my schedule, what time for devotions? Like, we have so many different reasons, but when God speaks, he speaks. And when God gives a command, he gives a command. And can I tell you that sometimes when God asks for obedience, there is a grace in that moment to make the obedience easier if you follow it and obey instantly. But if you push it off, you may not have the same grace as you're obeying later. And it may feel harder later than it would have felt in the moment if you would have just went with the grace that he was releasing in the moment. I know I'm talking fast, but I feel like there's something to do. And the Bible still says in Hebrews 3:15, it says this. Remember what it says when? Bring a verse up. Where's it at? Bring it up. There it is. No, Hebrews. Guys, bless the sound man in Jesus' name. That's all right. They're doing it right. Hebrews, brother. All right, I'm just going to read it from my laptop. It says, today, when you hear his voice, harden not your hearts, as Israel did when they rebelled. Doesn't say tomorrow. Doesn't say if you feel like it later. Doesn't say if you really like the idea. It says today, when you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. So I want to walk you through three things. Everybody say three things. Three things that we need to just start doing that were barriers for Naaman to receive his miracle. Everybody say number one. Three things. Number one is just do it. Humility. We need to be more humble. Anybody say amen to that one? We need to be more humble. Did you know humility is a byproduct of the Spirit of God? Did you know that God calls us to be humble? Look what Naaman said in 2 Kings 5:11. It says, but Naaman became angry and stalked away. Look what he said. I thought he would certainly come out to meet me face to face. So you're coming to the prophet for a miracle to heal you, and Naaman is complaining because he didn't come meet him face to face. And Naaman is over here like, does he know who I am? I am the general of Syria. I am the head honcho. I am la creme de la creme. I am that guy. How dare he not come meet me face to face? Do you know that I've been at Vertical for 30 years? I'm an elder. I got a title. I've been leading groups for 15 years. Who do you think you are? I only listen to Pastor Ken. I only listen to the lead. Like I am that guy. I tithe. I give. I'm. And here comes God saying, actually, you're not that big of a deal. Like the Bible still teaches us that from the cross of Christ, all humanity has been leveled. That everybody is on the same page. Everybody is imperfect. Everybody is broken. It don't matter your pedigree. It don't matter your accolades. Don't matter your bank account. Don't matter if you got your degree from Yale, Harvard. Doesn't matter. All that stuff is beautiful. But in light of eternity, it really doesn't matter. Come on, somebody. And so there's this humility that has to start working in our hearts to say, listen, if he didn't come out to see me face to face, so be it. But I'm not going to let that irk my pride and make me want to start acting funny because I still need a miracle. because I still need God to do something. His whole thing was, how come he didn't come see me to my face and say hello like I assumed he would? Listen. You can't let pride rob you of your miracle. You can't let pride rob you of your miracle. And nobody would probably say that out loud, but we live that way. We live that way. We do the dream team highlight. Hey, you want to come join the parking lot team? Parking lot. You know what I used to do at my old church? I used to do the announcements every Sunday. Take the offering. That's cute. You're not at your church anymore. You're at your new church, right? And we're not looking for people who are doing what they want to do. We're looking for people who are doing what's necessary to move the mission of Jesus forward, right? Like there's this reality. And so we don't really say that stuff. We'll be like, children's church. Give me a lead position somewhere. Let me start a ministry because I have this gift. And the whole time we're missing God. 1 Peter 5:5-6 says this. It says, in the same way, you who are younger must accept the authority of the elders, and all of you dress yourselves in what? Humility as you relate to one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the what? To the what? So humble yourselves under the mighty power of God, and at the right time, he will lift you up in honor. It's never when we want to lift ourselves in honor. It's God, it's all about you. It will always be about you. You're the only one who deserves the glory. You're the only one who deserves the credit. You're the only one that should be known. You are the one. God gives grace to the humble. God lifts up the humble. God is no respecter of persons, titles, or achievement. Before him, the playing field is even. I'll never forget. I worked at Metro North Railroad, 20-something years old, young and gunning. You know what I'm saying? I'm still young. I'm 29 again. And I never forget, I got there and I went through a 3-month training program. And one of my second jobs I knew was like to change the brakes on the train. And that's a big, there's like 8 or 10 cars. You're talking about over 200, 300 brakes in an 8-hour shift. And I never forget, there was this older dude. Don't judge me. This is immature, David. I'm better now. There's this older dude, and he was like, hey, man, would you like me to show you how I do it? And I was like, nah, I'm good, bro. I was like, look at you like decrepit. I was like, I didn't say that. I was just like, bro, it looks like I'm going to get finished faster than you. He was on the job for 30 years. And he was like, okay, no problem. And so we went to our first day, right? I'm sweating, dripping. It took me 8.5 hours on an 8-hour shift to change every brake on that car. Guess how long it took this man? 2 hours, hour and a half. He was sitting there reading a book, chilling like, you good? I was like, fantastic, fantastic. Sweating, mad, bleeding, calluses. And I was so stubborn. And I didn't want to admit I had a pride issue because I stayed like that for a month, suffering. And finally, I couldn't take it anymore, and I went to him, and I was like, hey, man, I think we get off on the wrong foot. Can you help me? And he was like, I thought you got it. And I was just like, I don't, what are you doing? And he said, this is something you wouldn't know because they don't teach you in training anymore. He said, there's a special tool that only the managers can order that they don't give you unless you ask for it. And it more than doubles the amount of time that you can get things done in. And all it was this little thing that my pride that I would say I'm humble never or stopped me from receiving what I could have been resting in a long time ago because I was too prideful to say, I need help. I don't have it together. I'm not sure. Like if you don't want to come see me face to face, that's okay. I just need help. Like we need to get to this point where it's like even if it's something we did not expect, we can still walk in it. We can still be obedient to it. God makes us humble to teach us that our way is never better than his way. And this reality of like, you are called by God, but it doesn't give you a right to be prideful. Your title is not a defense to teach people how they can come up to you on the hierarchy. In other words, when you get into rooms, you know how I help myself get humble? I just start teaching myself, David, when you go into a room, you have a title, everybody's going to want to ask you questions. You need to start asking questions first. So now I'll go into rooms and I don't talk about myself. I'm going to celebrate other people. I'm going to listen to other people. I'm going to ask them about their life. I'm going to ask them about their kids. I'm going to ask them about their job. I'm going to add value to other people because it's teaching me that it's not all about me. It's not all about my experience. It's not all about what I think should happen. There are other people who are going through life and they have different voices and different experiences and different understandings. And pride will tell you that you just need to listen to me. When in reality, I need to listen to you. It's coming under, and especially if they're not in a place of power. Everybody wants to listen to the pastor. No one wants to listen to the person in the back row. I never forget, I told pastors, Pastor Ken at one point, I was like, hey man, I feel ministry on my life. I feel called. I feel anointed. I got a word. I was going to Liberty. I'm studying the word, seminary. I got all this theology and all this, I'm just like, I'm just ready to preach. And I swore, I was like, I'm going to change the world, Pastor Randall. And I'm the revivalist. And I'm going to take New England with fire. And I'm like, I'm that guy. And I'm just, and I was like, Pastor, I want to preach. I want to preach. And he was like, bet, go clean up after VBS. Talk about a humility sandwich. I was like, give me a microphone. And he was like, here, a toilet scrubber. Huh? Because God's way is always better than our way. Because sometimes God has to work with our pride before he ever brings us to a miracle. And sometimes God is giving answers to prayer, but we just don't like the way it sounds because our pride stops us from coming low under the mighty hand of God. The mighty hand of God. Number 2, just do it. We need to learn how to trust. Trust. How you doing with trust lately? How you doing with trusting in God's way lately? How are you doing with trusting that God's way is the better way? How are we doing with trusting that God is smarter than us? That he knows more than us? That he sees the bigger picture? Because look what Naaman did next. 2 Kings 5:11, it says this, ready? I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God, and what? Heal me. So the second area he's frustrated about, first it was his pride, now it's like, I thought this was going to be a bit more dramatic and spiritual. Like I was expecting the cloud and the lightning and the thunder and the my son, thou art healeth. Like I was expecting all that, but God doesn't do it your way. God does it his way. And his way is better than my way. And here's this reality of like, God's not always going to show up the way you want him to show up. He expected God to show up with this big bang, prophet come out and be healed. And God was like, nah, tell my servant to go take 7 dips. You'll be straight. I'll see you later. And he was like, I expected it to be something so different. He wanted the supernatural energy, the mystical, powerful display of a miracle. Sometimes we can struggle so much, you ready? Expecting things to play out like comparing our miracles with the miracles of our brothers or our sisters. And say, God did it for him that way, he's about to do it for me that way. And God did this for this person, so I'm going to do this. And sometimes it's easier to believe that God's just going to give it to us in one shot, right? Like I want to believe the preacher online is like, send me $100 and I'll give you a check for 200 million supernaturally. Like, I wish. But maybe God doesn't want to give you that type of breakthrough. Maybe he wants to teach you about stewardship, saving, working, so that when you do get a blessing, you're able to steward it well and then continue to bless the kingdom. Like maybe that's the way that he wants to do it. And we can't get so caught up that we're trying to force God into a miracle box of this is the way he moves. This is the only way he speaks. This is the only way No. God is God. And he will do whatever he wants, however he wants. And he did not choose to do Naaman in some supernatural display of glory. He was like, go into the water, you'll be straight. And Naaman was upset about it. And I get upset about it sometimes. Can I share a story with you? My aunt, when I was about 17, died of cirrhosis of the liver. On the age of like 44. Love that aunt. I was a Christian at the time. I went to her hospital multiple times. Prayed in tongues. Put the oil, called pastors to pray for her. I did everything. Standing in faith, believing, trusting God, heal, God, heal, God, heal, God, raise her up. And she passed away. And at the time, I was like, my faith is strong. But as I grew older, I realized that I started to hold this offense against God. God, I expected you to heal her, to raise her up. And one day I was praying and I heard the Holy Spirit say, son, I did raise her up. And I said, what are you talking about? She died. He said, son, I raised her up, just not the way you wanted me to. She's raised in glory. She's with me. She is no longer suffering. I did it, but just my way. And I need you to trust that my way is better than your way. that I have a plan in this, that I'm working this for your good, that I'm doing something differently. And sometimes we get so caught up in how we wanted it to be. And sometimes we can get offended at God, offended at our kids because they don't act the way we want them to act. And offended. And it's like sometimes we just need to let go of the control and just say, whatever it is, I'm here for it. Father, the Bible says this in Proverbs 3:5. Look at this verse. It says, trust in the what? With all your what? Do not on your own. Next verse. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Look at this next one. Don't be impressed by your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord. Turn from evil, and then you will have healing for your body and strength for your bones. We cannot lean on our own understanding. We must trust that God has a better way for our marriage, a better way for our business, a better way for our family, a better way for our life, a better way for our finances, a better way for bringing us in this place. God is up to something that our human wisdom will never fully understand. And the more that we're frustrated and mad about the fact that we don't get it, the more that we stay stuck. Is this helping anybody today? Is this helping anybody today? Sometimes we need to learn that we need to go with the supernatural flow, not try to create our own flow. Sometimes we write ourselves way too much into the story. We need a lot more trust and a little less testing. A lot more trusting his way and less testing to see if it's really true. Listen, can I just say it this way? You need to trust that whatever way God's going to grow you, whatever way God's going to bring you to the call of God in your life, whatever it looks like, it will be completely on him. And we just need to trust that his way is better. I'll never forget it. I've said it before. I was called to preach. I wanted to preach. And then all of a sudden, guess what happened? I had to learn that if that means learning to serve in areas that are not my calling first, then I'm going to serve in areas that are not my calling first. So talk to me, Pastor Dave. What are you saying? I'm talking about, hey, we need some help in the parking lot. I'm called to preach. You know what? I love the parking lot. I would love to serve in the parking lot. I would love to sit in 97-degree weather and sweat and say, welcome to Vertical Church of People. Hey, Pastor, we need help in children's ministry. I'm not called to children's ministry, but I would love to serve in children's ministry. I love children. They're cute. They're beautiful. Little creatures, but I love them. They're great. I serve in children's ministry. Hey, we need people to greet people. Greeting people. I'm an introvert. I love to greet people. I got you. I'll greet people today. Hello. Welcome to Vertical. Happy you're here. You need me to make a coffee. I'll do a frappa-lappa mocha topa. I'll do whatever you want. But you know what? His way is better. And if it says, hey, start here to get there, I'm going to serve there to get there because I trust that your way, your plan, your statutes, your way is better than where I am. And sometimes it doesn't look like where I am. Doesn't even look nearly correlated. But now that I look back, I see the hand of God in it. How's your attitude? Last point, just do it. Obedience. That's a tough word. If you grew up legalistic, obedience scares a lot of people, and people start to feel restraint and, oh, I can't obey God. What does that mean? And people start to get scared, but obedience isn't scary. Obedience is beauty. We don't obey to get to heaven. We obey because we're already going to heaven. And the walk of Christianity is not like, I just have this relationship with God. It's a vibe, we vibe. And he gets me and I get him, but I never obey him because I just do what I want because that's the type of God I serve. No, baby, you got this wrong. That's not how it works. We don't get to tell God how. We don't get to tell God when. He speaks and we serve. He says go and we go. He says move and we move. Obedience is hard for me, if I'm honest with you guys sometimes. I don't want to obey. When he's like, yo, somebody slaps you in the face, turn the other cheek. I'm like, Say who? Yeah. We'll try that later. I love that. Hey, give 10% of your income. Maybe after a couple messages. Hey, love the unlovely. Ooh, that's tough. Bless your enemies. You know she's an enemy. Every Sunday she be giving me that look at the side of her eyes. Meanwhile, she just can't see because of the lights. You know she hates me. Maybe she's just nervous to talk to you because she thinks you're a great person. Maybe she honors the gift of God on your life. Look what he said in 2 Kings, Naaman's last objective. And he said, aren't the rivers of Damascus, the Abana and the Parfar, better than any of the rivers of Israel? Why should I wash in those rivers and be healed? So Naaman turned away and went in a rage. Have you ever gotten into an argument with somebody, P-Ran, and you know you're winning? And the way you know you're winning is they start making random stuff up. You'd be like, and you're like, gotcha. And they'd be like, but you don't clean your clothes every day. And you're like, what? What does that do what we're talking about? You don't, yeah, because they know they lost. And this is basically Naaman's last little defense of like, but our water's cleaner. So what? What does it have to do with what he told you to do? Oh, I get it. You just don't want to obey. Hello? Where my husband's at? You came home after work, a long day, and you had every intention to be a good husband and take out the garbage. And as soon as wifey was like, babe, can you take out the garbage? You were like, I'm the man of this house. I ain't taking out nothing. I'll do it tomorrow. Because the rebellion in our hearts, the sin in our hearts is always pushing back on the simple obedience of Scripture. Of just do it. You're going to be better because of it. Just do it. Your miracle's on the other side of it. Just do it. Your breakthrough is right there. Just do it. Just humble yourself. Just don't resist it. Just go with it. Naaman just did not want to obey. He didn't like the solution. And he started comparing the water to other things. And then we just come in here and like, nah, God, but you bless her that way. That's the way it's like, no, just do it. Look at this verse. And we hear this verse screaming from the Old Testament, and I love it, in 1 Samuel 15. And it says, but Samuel replied, what is more pleasing to the Lord, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, or your obedience to his voice? Listen, obedience is better than sacrifice. And submission is better than the offering of fat rams. God's asking for obedience, not for salvation's sake, but for sanctification's sake. Did you know that obedience produces strength, supernatural, spiritual strength? Did you know that obedience makes you stronger spiritually? Can I prove it to you in Scripture? Deuteronomy 11:8, that's not on the screens. God was giving them things to do so that they could be blessed. And he said this verse, and I found it a couple weeks ago in my devotion, never read it before, and I thought it's so powerful. It says, therefore, be careful to obey every command I'm giving you today. Look at this next verse. So that you may have strength to go in and take over the land you are about to answer. What a connection. He goes, in order for you to have strength to progress spiritually, you need to obey. Yeah. Can I submit to you, your weakness is maybe a consequence of disobedience. And we all disobey. Ain't no good judgment preaching today, no condemnation. Don't leave out here feeling terrible. But if you hear the voice of the Lord today, don't harden your heart. Submit that to God. God, I've been prideful lately. And I know it. I've been trying to act like I'm not and act like, but I've been prideful. And you know what, Jesus? I really haven't been trusting you either. Haven't been trusting you my time, my money, my kids, my family. I haven't been putting you first. Haven't been doing my devotions. I haven't been like, and you know what, God? I haven't been obedient. You told me to do something 2 weeks ago and I never did it. And I need to get better. Lord, give me grace I give that pride to you. I give that disobedience to you. Help me be better because we have a faithful Father who's not like, oh, you disobeyed, shame on you. Don't talk to me for a week. He's like, that's okay. I'm going to release grace for you today to start over today, to change today. Come on, Hebrews 3:15. If you hear the voice of the Lord, don't harden your hearts. Today is the day of salvation. So I don't know what your leprosy is. I don't know what it is. I know that we are Naamans. And I know that we have leprosy at times, spiritual sin. And I know sometimes it's not even like a big, deep secret thing or a sinful thing. Sometimes it's just habits that we can't seem to shake. It's just like, bro, every time I get a check, I spend it all. I can't stop it. Like every time somebody's mean to me, I just react and I have an anger. Like whatever it is, can I tell you? the miracle for the freedom from it is attached to your obedience, to walking this out with God day by day, to submitting this to Jesus at the cross, and believing that God is more than capable to deal and to work. What I love about the story is Naaman is not a believer. He's Syrian. He believes in a false god. Look at the heart of God in this. He's coming to God, doesn't even believe God to be healed. And I love that God doesn't go, you don't believe in me, ill. God goes, I'm going to heal you today so that you know who I am and that you know that I love you. What's a little concerning about this story, though, I can understand Naaman having all these rejections because he doesn't believe in God, Pastor Kermit. He doesn't believe in God, right? What makes it difficult for me sometimes in my own heart is how we, Pastor Randall, children of God, forgiven, redeemed, loved, Holy Spirit living on the inside of us, are still arguing with God over the things that he's called us to be obedient for today. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I can start my devotions today. I can start spending time with God today. I can start tithing. If I can't give 10%, I give $1 today. I'm going to trust God to love people today. I'm going to go home and actually pray for my enemies today. I'm going to give this addiction to God and open up to a leader about it so I can be in freedom today. Because there's a miracle on the other side of your obedience.